What is it about wealth that everybody wants it, but nobody works for it? I'm Justin Hitt with Sustainable Wealth Secrets. First off, how do we define wealth here at Sustainable Wealth Secrets? Wealth is those things that money cannot buy. So yes, wealth is net worth, net cash flow. Wealth is your ability to obtain credit, but it's also those things that you have, such as personal security, choice, and freedoms. Being able to have enough cash to do what you want is extremely useful. But if you're in an environment that doesn't let you do it, then what good is it? There's a lot of wealthy people who are unhappy with their life because they've gotten themselves into a position where they can't do what they want to do. How do we resolve this? Well, first off, sustainable wealth is wealth that you can maintain for a lifetime, for generations. So it may include, maybe you don't have a high net worth, but you have adequate insurance policies to provide for your family long after your death, or to settle debts, or to otherwise mitigate the risks or concerns that your family might have with an untimely passing. You may not have insurance. You may instead have, by the way, you should have insurance, but you may instead have self-insurance, which is cash. You may have enough cash in the bank. So instead of $1 million term policy, you've got actually $1 million in cash in the bank growing for you. Both of those could be equivalents, depending on your lifestyle, depending on your personal goals and desires, and depending on your economic ability to earn. In the case of cash in the bank, you may be older. You may not have the ability to earn more money, so paying a premium on an insurance policy is not really a good idea. The other case, you could be a young family, and the $1 million term policy is very affordable while you're building your wealth. Both individuals could have an equal, consistent, and stable position of wealth. Understand this. This is very important. You could have a high income. You could have a low income. The individual with a high income spends every dollar they have. In fact, they have debt. They have debt because of student loans, and they have debt because of where they live to have proximity with their job. They have frustrations because they're commuting 2 hours a day, or COVID's happened and now they're trapped in a city and they can't go to their favorite restaurants. They can't go out, and they're stuck in their home day after day, hour after hour, doing work remotely when they're a people person. They want to connect. And so they have a high income, great, but every penny and then some is gone. This other person has an average income. They live in a rural community. They already telework, but they've set up their environment so that they can have the flexibility that they want. They have hobbies and activities that allow them, even during COVID, to go out and enjoy themselves, and they're living the life. No debt, no obligations, small house, small expenses. So they have, in effect, a higher net cash flow than somebody making multiples of their income. Now, of course, if you have the discipline and you have the income, then you're better off. Don't get me wrong. High incomes are good because the potential for growth is higher than a lower income. Now, of course, you could be this third person, and I'm describing here in proxy some of the clients that I've had over the years. You could be this third person who effectively, on paper, their adjusted gross income is average, but they're receiving their income through capital gains. They're receiving their income through passive means like real estate. They're receiving their income through syndication, which means they're the organizer or the leader, and they have people who work for them, who create income for them. There's various aspects of this. But again, what's your definition of wealth? What would satisfy you from a monetary and a resource means? Because again, wealth doesn't have to be financial. I've known farmers who have all of their day-to-day food needs taken care of. In fact, they actually have recreational hobbies to get them additional food, such as hunting or trapping. They enjoy the outdoors. They have a modest home, and everything is paid for. Their income is at the poverty level, yet they never seek assistance because they think they're the richest people in the world, which technically they are, because they have, again, zero debt. They have no obligations to anybody else except themselves, and they kind of come and go as they please. So listen carefully. What is the wealth for you? What is your wealth? Have you written it down and defined for you what is wealth for you? Do you want time freedom? Do you want financial freedom? Do you want life of luxury or a life of your command? Are you interested in being around certain types of people or certain types of things? These are all aspects of wealth that are very important for you to consider. Here's another case. Individual I worked with, heavily leveraged, millions and millions of dollars of debt. Yet, they make an above average income. They have above average lifestyle. They have nice things, but not really nice things. So it's a late model vehicle that's well maintained rather than a new vehicle. But ultimately, their debt is way higher than anyone could imagine, yet they have a positive net cash flow because carefully each debt was matched with a asset that cash flow. Most of this debt was real estate, and so an apartment building that maybe has $500,000 in debt on it, it was actually cash flowing almost $100,000 a month. It cash flow enough to pay for staff to maintain it, to pay the debt obligations, and to pay down a little bit of the capital expenditures. Because when you own a building, you might be replacing a roof over time. So you may not be paying for the actual labor of work today, but you're setting aside funds in a reserve in order to be able to make the payment when it's due. So if you have a roof that has a 30-year lifespan and it's 15 years in, you want to make sure that you're saving over the 15 years in order to make a cash purchase to do the replacement. So again, he's heavily leveraged, debt on everything, doesn't own a single thing in his own name. Literally the business and his obligations to the business are very high by any standard, yet the net cash flow covers all this debt. So effectively, he's canceled out the debt by the way he manages that debt. Can you see what I'm getting at here? There are many paths to sustainable wealth, but there are a few concepts that you must understand in order to leverage the resources you have today. Because again, wishing about resources somebody else has or you might have in the future or you could have had if you didn't make these mistakes, none of that brings you forward. None of that elevates your situation and draws you towards the outcome you desire. But if you can outline the outcome you desire, very often we can discover a path that is the critical path. It is the fewest number of steps to get to the outcome that you want. It's not necessarily easy. It may require sacrifices. You can't do that third Disney vacation this year because you might want to save that money in the bank or pay down debt or to apply it to an asset that cash flows. You might want to have a late model car instead of that brand new car every year or the latest iPhone. But then again, you may be in a position where these items can be provided to you, no charge, no expense, or even a tax deduction. That's called structure. So I don't want to get into the specifics right now of how to create sustainable wealth because that's a program tailored to your unique situation. But I want you to understand that wealth can be what you define it. Do you want to have a 3-day work week and get to spend more time with your family? Do you want to have a 7-day work week doing something you enjoy that doesn't really seem like work? Do you want to have enough money in the bank that you can just take a sabbatical for 2 years and just tell everybody to screw himself and do whatever the hell you want for 2 years? Do you want to be in a position where you can ultimately walk away from anything you don't want and focus only on what you do want? See, this is about liberty. This is about control. This is about your options. If something were to go wrong in the economy, if something were to go wrong with our civic systems, our governmental systems, or your local government, if there were to be a flood or a natural disaster, could you just get up and walk away? See, that's sustainable wealth. And it's not necessarily going to be financial. And in fact, the takeaway point I want to give to you is that money is nothing. Money is just a bunch of zeros. The difference between $10 and $100 is that there's another zero at the end of the 1 0. So there's 1 0 0, that's 100. 1 0 is 10. There's just a zero difference, and a zero is nothing. And when you understand this, you start to realize that money is only a medium of exchange. It is a portable representation of the desires, the wants, and the things you want. Now, I know everybody's been taught money is the root of all evil. No, it's the love of money. Because if you were to love the money greater than the things the money can purchase, you'd be like the wise man who, or the rich man who buried all his coins in his backyard and died poor. He didn't utilize that money. He didn't put it to use. The biblical story about the talents, each of these individuals were given money, given this object that represents money, and only a few of them saw that representation was actually a means of growth, was a means of self-development, was a means of investment. And those who did nothing with the money were thought to be wretched and weak and useless, because they didn't take that seed and grow it. See, I'm an avid gardener. I love to garden. I love to plant things and grow stuff and walk in the forest and understand the development of plants, because it is the foundation of wealth. Every seed you have in storage is a seed doing nothing. It doesn't gain any value. It doesn't get bigger. It doesn't do anything. But every seed you plant and properly cultivate becomes more seed. And that's exactly what money is. There's no difference between a seed, a bead, or a dollar. Nothing. It's zero. There's nothing. And in fact, in your home, you have money all around you in the physical possessions. And many of these possessions you don't even use. You could turn them back into money and then use that money in a different way. See, the money is the medium of exchange. You can turn a bushel of apples into cash. And then you could turn cash into a bushel of oranges. You could essentially transmute apples into oranges with a monetary system. Now, again, the monetary system gets manipulated. We have cultural challenges with money itself. People misunderstand money and hate it or even fear it. There are people with high incomes who are afraid of money. They're afraid of not having enough. I'm going to leave you with one story. An individual in California, they were making extremely good income, about $266,000 a year. They realized that earning $266,000 a year required them to do things that actually were very expensive, that they didn't enjoy, and that they would otherwise not want to do. So, for example, working long hours. They didn't want to work long hours. Yeah, they didn't mind working long hours because they enjoyed what they do, but often there was a lot of unproductive time that was spent at the office that could have been spent developing family relationships, because family relationships is a form of wealth. What they decide, there was also parties and events. They had to be seen. And to be seen, they had to wear certain clothes, and those clothes were expensive. And they had to live in a certain area, and they had to be in a certain place because of proximity to the job. Some simple tweaks, after really understanding what wealth was to them, some simple tweaks put them in a different environment where they worked remotely. So, by the way, he's doing the same work. He just moved to the other side of the country to do the work. And by moving to the other side of the country, his office understood that he's going to have to work remote. And so he buys a better than average house on a golf course for a fraction of what he was spending for a very average house in a city, and ultimately gained better lifestyle, better interaction with his family, better opportunities at home and in the community, and less pressure while doing the same work. So he made the same $266,000 a year, and he had fewer expenses, fewer frustrations, and better results. See, the money didn't change. The money was zero. The money didn't change. He changed. And that's really what it's about. I want to thank you for listening. I'm Justin Hitt with Sustainable Wealth Secrets. If you have any questions about what I've covered today, you can visit me at www.sustainablewealthsecrets. In fact, I invite you to come out there for free resources and materials. If you like and subscribe what you have here, you'll get notifications about additional podcasts that are coming out. And ultimately, if you send in your questions, and I leave it up to you. I'm not forcing you to get, you don't need to gain wealth because of my behalf. You simply need to gain wealth because of what you want and desire. And again, that wealth is defined by you. Write it down somewhere, and it will come through the steps and things we share in this podcast. I'm Justin Hitt with Sustainable Wealth Secrets, www.sustainablewealthsecrets.com. Ask your questions, and this podcast has been about the true nature of money. Thanks for listening.